What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and today we are talking about Monster Hunter Rise PC. Now, instead of a formal review, because let's be honest, I already know I love this game. I put in countless hours on the Switch, and I plan on putting in countless more hours on PC. Instead, I wanted to take some time to talk about the primary differences that you are going to find between this game and World and Iceborne, which is the other main Monster Hunter that PC players have had a chance to play until now. So right out the gate, I think Rise does a really good job of taking from both the old and the new. And what I mean by that is a lot of the quality of life changes that we saw brought to the franchise in World and Iceborne. Stuff like being able to gather easier, you don't got to worry about having bug nets or mining picks or anything like that. All of that is still here in Rise, but it's actually been expanded upon even more. For example, take a mining node for you hit a mining node now, you just immediately get all the ore in that mining node instead of having to hit it 3 times. Another big change in general is going to be mobility. So Rise has really bumped the mobility level of the game up tremendously. For starters, we now have the Palamute, which you can have either 2 Palamutes or a Palamute and a Palico, or 2 Palicos. But as long as you have a Palamute, you can effectively use it as a mount. And this allows you to just really zip around that map quite fast. So, right now I'm still in low rank on PC. I'm just kind of going around exploring the map, doing some farming type stuff. And the Palamute is fantastic for that, because I'm able to get around, get to the things I need even faster. You can do like a double jump with it, so you can jump on the Palamute and then jump off of that to get yourself a little bit more air. And even putting aside the Palamute, we of course now have the wirebug as well, which this will take a little bit of getting used to, but honestly, once you get used to the wirebug, it is very hard to go back to not having it, because the mobility from this thing is so fantastic. You sit there and be like, oh wait, I had to go that way, and then you're on that little ledge. Not only that, but you can also use the wirebug as a recovery tool. So if something hits you and it knocks you down, you can do, instead of holding and hitting right trigger like that, I would just hit right or left trigger and B, and at the cost of a tool, it will recover me from a knockdown state. So this is especially useful when you're fighting against larger monsters, things that have constant knockdown attacks. The idea of being knocked down by Rajang and then have him follow up by chucking a massive boulder in your face, that isn't going to be the case here, assuming you have wirebug charges. You have 2 by default. You can pick up a 3rd as you're exploring around. But the wirebugs are super useful, because not only do they give you recovery and mobility, but they also give you access to enhanced moves. So for example, with the bow, I can spend 2 and do this little thing, and you can see that little glow, and that gives me a 10% damage boost for the duration of it, which is roughly a minute. And as you get farther and farther into the game, you can actually change these abilities out. For example, the starter bow one does this. It's an evasive jump that allows you to regain a ton of stamina, but if you replace that, you can get something called aerial shot, which will let you jump into the air and do a volley of 3 arrows down onto your target, doing a ton of damage. Honestly, it's like probably one of the strongest attacks in the game. It does so much damage and hits so freaking hard. But I really like the addition of the wirebug system, mainly because for those of you that have played Generations Ultimate, you're obviously familiar with the weapon arts. And weapon arts were a really cool, interesting idea in Monster Hunter. Basically, there were unique moves that every weapon could do, and these moves were tied to a specific cooldown, so you couldn't just spam them. But for example, with Sword and Shield, you had one that was called Chaos Slash, and what you would do is, Round Slash, not Chaos Slash, but basically it would just do a circular AoE slash with the Sword and Shield. But during the duration of this ability, you had full iframes. So the damage was alright. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't destroying monsters. But the iframes were incredibly potent, because if you knew a big attack was going to be coming in, monster was like, for example, a Rajang Slam Punch or something, you could time your round slash, and then you're getting damage in on Rajang, and you're iframing through his ability. So it allowed some very interesting play approaches, and we've also seen that true in Rise. You have certain abilities that are going to give you iframes while you do them. For example, the Sword and Shield has a Shuru Mangeki, I think it's called, but it's like a Street Fighter uppercut. And if you time the ability right, you actually get like a guard point during it. So you can either just do the ability and you'll you know, do an uppercut, hit something, or if you time the ability just right, you'll block an attack and then go boom, 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 and do like a multi-hit uppercut with your ability. So the addition of these adds another layer of depth into your hunt. These are, you know, while we're not exactly what it used to be with the weapon arts, it's very similar with the wirebug. But what I really like is that you have a set number of wirebugs, 2 or 3 if you have, if you picked up an extra one, and you need to decide. You could use those wirebugs to do your ability. You could use those wirebugs to evade away from the target, or you could use those firebugs for mobility in a fight. And so it's the flexibility of approach here that I find particularly interesting. For example, if he hits me here, I'm like trying to get hit. This is Azeros. He wasn't in World, but he's a big old boogly bear. Likes honey. It looks basic, but there's actually a version of him that's like super high tier. So you can see how I recovered right there, and instead of being stuck on the ground, I could have gone straight into a potion if I wanted. But it's because I have one wirebug. And if I want to, you know, get out of here, just run away. So anyway, the addition of wirebugs, super nice. I will say the one downside of them is once you get used to the wirebugs, it's very hard to go back. I remember I returned to Iceborne to do a mod on PC where somebody had added in the White Fatalis and Crimson Fatalis, and every time I got knocked down, it was muscle memory for me to try and use that wirebug to recover, and the recovery wasn't there, and that was a really hard habit to break after all the time I had spent playing in Rise. So anyway, some other nice changes that I think make this really nice. Looking at our map here, we can break down our map specifically by what we want. So spirit bugs, endemic life in particular, gathering. And what's nice is when we back out of that, you can see down in the corner there, my mini-map. My mini-map now shows that exact stuff. So I wanted to have endemic life up. My mini-map now shows the endemic life. And that's just something you turn on in the settings. But there's a high amount of customizability in the settings this time around. You know, things like being able to turn on specific elements of your UI, being able to change how your map rotates. We have the addition of something called the action bar, which I disabled, but it allows you to have certain stuff on like a separate hotkey away from your buttons. But anyway, let's talk about endemic life, because this is another really cool change that I like. So we have more passive endemic life, stuff like this, the butterflame. You hit that, and now I have an attack buff. And these are located throughout the map. Some of them are going to do defense, some of them are going to boost your attacks, some of them are going to reduce stamina costs. And, you know, you just run by, you grab it, you have that buff for duration. You have stuff like this, the Trick Toad, where if I pop that, that's going to attract monsters to attack it. So if I was fighting something that was bigger, it would go after that toad instead of me. And that's a little bit more of an active use. And then we actually have on-use endemic life, and these are really cool. So you can see one on the map right now. It's that blue icon that I'm running towards. I guess you could call these hunter helpers. Oh, that's right. Hang on a second. I needed to get a picture of this thing for a quest. So let me just. There we go. Beautiful. So this is a mud beetle, and there are different styles of beetles around the map. There's, you know, mud beetles and lightning beetles, and what's nice about this is you can use them. So you can see right now I have a snow beetle and a mud beetle, but you can use these to apply elemental blights to monsters. So, you know, I'm playing with a bow right now, and it's a non-elemental bow. And then, as you know, a big thing with a bow is you needing to hit a target at the right spot. You know, you got to get those weak points. You need to make sure that when I attack my target, I'm hitting it at an area that it's vulnerable. And using something like this, I can apply water blight to the target. And now all of his hit zones are going to be juicy as hell. Let's see, he has that blue glow right now for the duration of the effect. But if I wanted to do a different one, look at the snow beetle, for example. If I hit him with a snow beetle, now he's inflicted with ice blight instead. And so his movement is going to be slowed. He's not going to be attacking as fast. It's going to be a little bit, you can see just how slow he is trying to get over to me now. You know, there's all kinds of blights. There's fire blight, which will cause damage over time on your target. There's the ice blight, which will slow, water blight, which will open things up. The lightning blight one, that in particular is really nice, because what lightning blight is going to do is it's going to basically line the monster up for a stun. It inflicts the monster with lightning, and as long as you get a couple hits on the face, you'll be able to get a stun on the target, knocking them down. There's all kinds of stuff, you know, it's more than just those little things that we're throwing. Take this, for example, Antidote Obra. With this thing, you put this on out, and it's just gonna cast this thing out. And while this thing is out, you're basically immune to poison effects. So if you're fighting something like a Rapian, having one of those on hand can be super useful. If you're trying to lure monsters together to have them fight, you have the Stink Mink, and you put this little guy out, and this is going to like emit a pheromone that's going to attract monsters to you. So now I could go over here to the Ludroth, he'll see me, and he'll chase me all the way on over. Let's just, you know what, let's just show it to you. Let's see if I can get him to, I don't know if he'll come up, but let's see. Hey there, buddy. You can see how it's like on his face, he has that effect on him now. And we are going to go this way. And he should follow me all the way over. So the point is, there's a whole new like level of depth to the game that we didn't have in World or in Iceborne. Just, you know, it's the little things like this that I think makes the hunting in Rise so much more fun. Is, you know, being able to interact with our environment on a larger scale. It's coming over here. Where's the other guy at? Okay, I should be able to draw these to each other. Alright, he's still attracted to me, so now we're just gonna go this way. Assuming he can climb up this. He's trying. Can you get up here, big boy? Yeah, you can. So, you know, just doing that, I've brought the monsters together, and now these two are going to go at it. Which then introduces our next thing that we have in Rise, and that is Wyvern riding. So, when you do enough of your Wyvern attacks, or when a monster has been attacked by another monster, you can then jump on it and basically have the monsters just fight each other. So it's going to get a little bit of damage in. Probably one of the nicer things about doing this, though, is as you can see, as I'm hitting this thing, it's knocking shinies onto the ground. So there's two shinies on the ground already. You can get up to 3 drops from a monster. So, you know, if you're missing like one piece of loot from a particular monster, you might be able to just go in, Wyvern ride, fight that monster, and get it to drop that one piece of loot that you're missing if it's something simple. And after doing enough damage, of course, you have a Mounted Punisher, which is usually like the signature attack of that particular monster. So here at Azeros, we have his multi-swing, which will end with a big double. Now that guy's on the ground for duration. Azeros is going to go away. I'm just going to pick up all this delicious stuff from the Royal Ludroth. And now if I wanted, I would fight him. But you can see how the eye has changed, and he is now leaving. But so there's tons and tons and tons of stuff that's been added that adds an additional layer of depth into the game. Here's one of my favorites. This thing's really cool. The Blastoad. Y'all remember Blastoads from World and Iceborne? Now we can just bring them on along. So, you know, you're sitting there fighting something, pull out your Blastoad, check this out. A little bit of good timing. I'll just put that guy down. Boom, and it knocks him down, and now I can just sit here and just riddle his face full of bullets. Jumping away from the hunt, though, of course we have an all-new hub, a new hub setup area, and it's such a simple thing, but one of the things I really like about Rise over World and Iceborne is the layout. It is so easy to find everything now. So we can pick up quests right here with Noah. If we had to buy something, like basic potions or whatever, we can go to the merchant right there. Regular blacksmith is right here. Blacksmith for your buddies is right there. Our chest is right here. Our buddy's board is right there to like change our buddy abilities. And then if we want to eat, the canteen is right here. So everything is very, very cleanly laid out. You know, you're not like picking up the quest at the board and then running to the opposite side of the town like you are in World. That even goes further with the gathering hub. So the gathering hub is just right here. You don't got to ride an elevator like you did in World. And this is also very simple. So we have a merchant right there. We pick up our quests right here. If you're in multiplayer, you go to the quest board right here to get it. You can eat right here. If you're doing arenas, you can talk to that dude right there. And then, of course, we have our little prep area as well in the hub, which is where you're going to spend a lot of time just because everything is super condensed. So, Buddy Smith, regular Smith, the housekeeper, which will let us do meowcenaries, sending our palicos out to get rewards, or Argosy. The Argosy is kind of like this game's version of the farm. You can farm up specific items. Over here we have another buddy board, and then of course our item box. But they really did take a lot of time in looking at the layout of both the town and the hub and Rise to make them just super approachable. You know, you're not running all over trying to find stuff. Everything is just kind of where it should be. It's really nice. So some other stuff that we have, of course, we have a full training area has made a return to the game, along with customizable stuff. We can change the head position of the target in the training area, make it attack so you can practice guard points, all kinds of stuff like that. Taking a look in at the options, I mentioned this briefly earlier, but there's quite amount of customizability. But in particular, I want to take a look at the display option and the graphics options, because I think that's one of the biggest things with a game like this that comes to PC. So graphic settings, we have a base thing here, and then we have our advanced settings. So before we jump into that, of course, you can decide whether you want to go borderless, HDR, all that, resolution, what you want your display coming out at, aspect ratio, frame rate cap if you want one on, desync. And then when we go into advanced, we have image quality, which we can push up as high as we want. So right now this is in 4K with 150% image quality on. So this is basically the best the textures are going to get. This also has the high res pack-in, high texture filtering, ambient occlusion, shadow quality, all of that stuff. But even with almost all of this on, I think one of the, of course we have the filters they were talking about as well. We can add filters for cool, like the Warring Lands one. This one's kind of cool. It adds like just like a dark vignette to everything. But I think one of the nice things is obviously this game isn't going to look as pretty as World or Iceborne. That's just, you know, it's just the way it is. This game was originally made on the Switch. It was ported here, and it does use the new RE engine that they had started doing the Resident Evil remakes with. So the engine runs a lot smoother, and that's probably the biggest factor. Let me see. Just alt-tabbing out right now. So I am playing the game in 4K, and I'm recording in 4K. And just to take a look at my task manager on a 3080, I'm running at 61% GPU utilization. So there was like a slight hiccup there while I pulled up a window and alt-tabbed. But that's crazy. I mean, the fact that I'm playing this in 4K at 150% resolution while also recording it at 4K with a bit rate that I think is around probably like 30 megs a second or something, and I'm only sitting around 60-65% utilization on my GPU, that's optimized. And that's one of the biggest things for me. Is I know there were quite a few times where we were playing Iceborne or World on PC and trying to stream it. As somebody that does all of this stuff on a single rig setup, there were times where it was chugging along. And they have definitely done a really good job of optimizing that. Now, obviously, the textures aren't going to be as high in some cases. I mean, look at this grass. Like, it's not terrible, but it doesn't look as soft and flowy as things do in Iceborne. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, I think it looks good enough. I think considering that this was originally on the Switch, I think they have done a pretty damn good job of porting this on over to the PC. Like, sure, I would have loved it if it had the graphics that was built from PC from scratch, but this certainly does not look bad. And I think that's the important distinction that I want to make. So, either way, we're going to wrap things up here. Honestly, if you are debating on getting this on PC, I 100% recommend it. This has been my favorite Monster Hunter, bar none. I mean, I've played since Monster Hunter 3, And what I love so much about Rise is that it takes some of the really cool combat stuff that we had in GU. It also has locale variety and monster variety from GU, whereas in like World almost everything was a Wyvern, and that's only going to get better with Sunbreak. So it has all that, and then we have the quality of life improvements that we had in World and Iceborne, and it pulls them together in what I feel is a excellent fusion of the two styles of Monster Hunter, and really kind of brings us into where Monster Hunter should be as a franchise moving forward. You know, it's a lot more accessible than it used to be. It's good. It's good. If there was one downside that I would give this game, and this isn't even necessarily a PC thing, but just in general, the end game in Rise definitely isn't as strong, and that's going to be a big thing. As you know, coming from Iceborne in particular, you know, you had your guiding lands, you had your arc-tempered monsters in World. That grind is going to give you more hours, and right now the grind isn't as aggressive in Rise. I mean, you can sacrifice monster parts to talisman hunt. They've changed how armor and stuff works in this game. You basically just need to put a couple pieces together and drop in some decos, and you get your skill points. So very similar to how the skill system worked in World as opposed to GU. You can even craft your decorations outright now. So the RNG comes in form of your talisman or your necklace now, which you need to just craft those randomly with monster parts and hope you get one that works for your build. So that is the grind, which I prefer that over the endless decoration hunt that we had in World. But of course it makes things a little bit less grindy, which is, you know, it's just nature of the beast there. But we have Sunbreak on the horizon, and I would be very surprised if Sunbreak doesn't add a whole new level of depth to the end game of this. So I think for what this game has right now, I mean, you could easily play this and it would keep you busy until we have the launch of Sunbreak later this summer. Especially just, you know, starting over on PC from scratch, there's definitely enough content that you can dive into, leveling up weapons, trying out all the new stuff, trying out the new abilities. So I recommend it. Long story short, I recommend it. I'll probably put another 300-400 hours into this version. I'm probably going to stick with PC for Sunbreak simply because of the potential for mods. That's super appealing to me. So either way, we're going to wrap this one up here. If you're interested in more Monster Hunter, I'd highly recommend this. I think this is an improvement over World and Iceborne, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. But at the same time, if you're not sure, there is a demo on Steam. So try out the demo, see how it feels, see if you like it, and then take it from there. Either way, that's going to wrap this one up for me. I'll catch y'all later.